I hope everyone gets seated. So, good morning, distinguished guests, scholar, and participant. Welcome to the 6th Young Indian Scholar Conference on Tibetan Studies, Tibet and the South Asia. It's my privilege and honor to initiate the inaugural session for this scholarly gathering, which brings together assistant professor, doctor, and PhD scholar from different regions of India, all dedicated to studying the history, culture, and geopolitics of Tibet and the South Asia. So, without taking much time, I would like to start the inaugural session. First, I would like to invite Tempa Zamlha, Deputy Director of the Tibet Policy Institute, Central Tibetan Administration, to deliver the welcoming address.
A very good morning to you all. It is my great honor and privilege to welcome you all to the 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies here in Dharamshala at this beautiful college for higher Tibetan studies and in this very, very pleasant weather condition. The Tibet Policy Institute is exceptionally honored and particularly grateful for the presence of our Honorable Kalon, the Minister of the Department of Information and International Relations of the Central Tibet Administration, and also the co-chair of the governing body of Tibet Policy Institute. We are equally honored and grateful for the presence of Professor Ramu Manivannan, Professor Vasudha Pandey, Professor Sonika Gupta, Professor Swati Siddha Sakar here at the 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies to provide inputs to the presentations in the next 2 days. And most importantly, we are very excited with the participation of 25 young Indian emerging scholars on Tibetan studies to present their research papers here in the next 2 days. We are also thankful for the presence of Passang, the principal of the College for Higher Tibetan Studies, for continuously supporting and providing us with this beautiful conference venue. And of course, we like to welcome all the journalists here, observers, and other participants for this 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference organized by Tibet Policy Institute. Please note that the whole program, this is a note to all the participants, that the whole program will be televised by Tibettv present here as soon as the completion of each panel. And also that all the participants will be photographed during the process of the conference as well for the purpose of the conference and its procedures and other publications later. In the next 2 days, we have 30 scholars gathered here. Will engage in debate and dialogue on the strategic, historical, and cultural connection between Tibet and South Asia in 8 different panels. As we all know, Tibet holds a significant place in the heart of Asia, not just because of its breathtaking landscape and rich cultural heritage, but also due to its profound influence on the historical, cultural, and ecological connection with the South Asia. The rivers originating from the Tibet Plateau alongside the towering mountain ranges have been lifeline for millions of people across the region, shaping civilizations and cultures for centuries. Yet, despite this deeply rooted connections, Tibet's ties with South Asian countries have often been underexplored and deserve renewed attention. Over the past 5 years, this conference series has evolved into a critical platform for young scholars to delve into these intricate relationships and contribute fresh insights. We are particularly excited this year to provide space for discussion on Tibet's geopolitical relevance, its environmental significance, and the resilience of its cultural expressions within South Asian context. As the Tibet Policy Institute, our goal is to foster a scholarly community that not only explores Tibet's past, but also engages with its present challenges and opportunities. This conference is a step in that direction, offering a collaborative space for emerging researchers to share their work, learn from experts, and build connections that will shape the future of Tibetan studies, which could pave the way for reviving the rich scholarly exchange that existed between the scholars of Tibet and the scholars of South Asia since 7th century, particularly with the Indian scholars. As we embark on this journey of dialogue, learning, and discovery together, I hope that this conference will inspire new research, strengthen the connection between Tibet and South Asia, and deepen our understanding of Tibet's place in the regional narrative. As the tradition in the past few years, our editing committee will select the best papers presented here to be published in our Tibet Policy Journal. With that, once again, very, very welcome to the 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies to explore the historical, cultural, and environmental connection between Tibet and South Asia. Thank you once again for being part of this important gathering, and we look forward to a very interesting and intense 2 days of debate and discussion. And finally, I want to thank my colleague, Dolma, who is the chief coordinator of this conference, for working very hard for the last few months, and also my other colleagues, particularly Dr. Tsering and others who have also been part of organizing this conference. With this, thank you very much, and have a very, very good discussion in the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tempa Zamlha. Now I would like to invite Ms. Norzin Dolma, Honorable Minister Kalon of the Department of Information and International Relations, Central Tibetan Administration, and she is one of the co-chairs of the governing body of the Tibet Policy Institute. I would like to invite her to deliver the inaugural address.
Good morning, everyone. Tashidelek and Namaste. I'm very honored to be invited to this 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference on Tibetan Studies, and to have the opportunity to meet all the distinguished experts and scholars and who have gathered here to share and exchange your scholarly findings and useful insights on the conference theme of Tibet and South Asia. And I would like to thank you most sincerely for your presence and participation, and would like to thank my colleagues here at the Tibet Policy Institute for their dedication and commitment in terms of enhancing and strengthening our understanding of Tibet and Tibetan studies through the employment of different lenses, different fields, and different frameworks. So I thank you all. And for my address today, I would like to highlight why this conference theme of Tibet and South Asia is particularly relevant and significant. I would say its significance and relevance essentially boils down to the tragic fate of Tibet being invaded and occupied by People's Republic of China, and the long-standing unresolved status of the Sino-Tibet conflict. So these have implicit and explicit repercussions on geopolitical, geostrategic, geoeconomic dynamics within South Asia and also globally. So I shall be briefly emphasizing only on 3 factors so that I remain within the 10 minutes time duration that has been allotted to me. And so the first relevance of this conference theme becomes clear when we look at China's occupation of Tibet this has resulted in closer physical and psychological proximity of China to South Asian countries, particularly India, Nepal, and Bhutan. And India, as you know, shares over 3,400 kilometer-long borders with Tibet, and Nepal shares nearly 1,400 kilometer borders with Tibet. And then Nepal also has very close and close diplomatic and economic ties with China at present. And Bhutan shares nearly 500 kilometers along the Himalayas, and it has minimal interaction with China. But all these have created a very complex, very concerning geopolitical border tensions that has implications not only in South Asia, but also globally. And now with Tibet firmly under China's control, China is expanding its presence in India's neighborhood through multiple, through multiple initiatives, from economic investments, military presence, and influence operations. And one of China's biggest geoeconomic strategy has been its implementation of the Belt and Road initiative, which was launched in 2013 under Xi Jinping, and which, of course, has now mixed results and mixed reviews. But despite that, as of now, we have 147 countries that have signed up for this BRI project or have indicated an interest in doing so. So when we say 147 countries, this accounts for about 2/3 of the global population. And it also indicates 40% of the global GDP. And if we look at the South Asian countries, we have, as of now, at least 5 of the 8 South Asian countries becoming partners of China's BRI project. And these countries are Pakistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. And, and then militarily, China has also made its PLA presence in the disputed territory of what is now called the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, under the umbrella of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Partnership. So all these activities in the Indian neighborhood has been creating a source of concern for the Indian authorities, and which the Indian authorities are now considering or perceiving as encirclement threat, or what they call as string of pearls strategy. And another area of concern, not only for South Asia, but also globally, has been China's efforts to dismiss international alliances, especially the US-led alliances and international institutions, and their efforts to undermine the universal values such as human rights. And instead, they embark on alternate projects, such as Xi Jinping's Global Security Initiative, Global Development Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative, and uses extensive media warfare and sharp power to influence and manipulate the international information environment, narrative building, diplomatic practices, development models, and also international norms. So we see that China is at every level seeking and creating more and more spaces for its infiltration and influence in all sectors, not only in South Asia, but also globally. Then the second factor of relevance is Tibet's is the geostrategic and environmentally sensitive location of the Tibetan plateau, which has implications not only on, which has implications on the entire Asian continent, if I'm not wrong to say this, because Tibet, as you know, is rightly referred to as the water tower of Asia or the third pole, because it contains an estimated 45,000 glaciers. And these glaciers serve as the main source of 10 major river systems in Asia, and it has been sustaining 1.8 billion population in 10 countries in South and Southeast, in South and Southeast Asia. So unfortunately, Tibetan Plateau is continuing to suffer from severe environmental degradation and rapid melting of glaciers. These are all caused either due to climate change or due to direct human interventions, such as China's misguided development policies and practices, resource extractions, and infrastructure development, which includes aggressive dam constructions and also water diversion projects. So many are rightly very concerned about China's water weaponization or water hegemonic practices, which is really, really threatening the fresh water security of the neighboring South Asian countries. So it is, I think, important that we revisit and also recognize Tibet's vital role or its centrality in Asia's hydrological cycle, just by the virtue of it being the main source of fresh water repository. And there might even be the need at a later stage to embrace the concept of ecological realism, which is nothing but preservation of biosphere or ecology as the core national interest. And the third factor of relevance, I would say, is that of why Tibet matters to South Asia is because Tibet has historical, spiritual, and also cultural connections with South Asian countries like India, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka. And if we look at the Buddhist population in the global community, it is currently estimated to be around 30 million. And in Bhutan, 75% of its population are Buddhist. And I think in Sri Lanka, it is at 69%. And Nepal, 10%, and in India, it's 0.7%. And we Tibetans consider that 95% of the Tibetan population are Buddhist. And you would know that in China-controlled Tibet right now, there is a large-scale Sinicization and persecution of Tibetan Buddhism and Buddhist practitioners. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama, is the global icon of peace. He is the unifying factor for Tibet and also the Tibetan community. And he's also the leading figure of global Buddhism, worldwide. But as you would know, that the issue of the reincarnation of His Holiness the Dalai Lama is one factor in which China is extremely interested in, and which I think has implications not only for the political agency and also legitimate authority of Tibet, but it has wider geopolitical repercussions in South Asia and also beyond. And before I conclude, I would like to draw your attention to what Mr. Tempa very rightly said about the poverty of research and scholarship on this very important but missing puzzle of Tibet's interlinkage with South Asia. So academic conference of this kind is very important because it provides significant platform for generating further scholarship and discourse, and your scholarly presentations and insights will become a valuable resource contribution to this very important conference theme of Tibet and South Asia. So with this, I wish you all a very meaningful and productive and happy stay and conference. And thank you all very much for your attention and all the very best. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Kalon and Sintomala. Now I would like to invite Professor Ramu Manivannan, Director of the Multiversity Center for Indigenous Knowledge System, Kurumbapalayam village, to deliver keynote address.
My humble respects and gratitude to the seeking blessings of His Holiness Dalai Lama, respected and Honorable Minister of the Department of Information and International Relations, Madam Norzin Dolma, respected Tempa Gyaltsen, Deputy Director of the Tibet Policy Institute, dear friend Passang, Tsering, Principal of the College of Higher Tibetan Studies, Sara, and other distinguished colleagues, teachers, scholars. I am deeply honored and at the same time very grateful for this privilege of joining you on this morning for the keynote address. Usually the keynote address is it's not really a protocol, but kind of sets the theme and the focus for the conference or the seminar that's being held. And as I understand that the theme of the conference is on the Tibet and the South Asia, one of the foremost issues that has been very important in my personal journey of the Tibet question is about the political geography and the physical geography, as well as the very important question of geostrategic significance for India. Let me present this from the Indian perspective itself, not essentially as, not essentially in the sense that, from the moral and from the political point of the right of Tibet and as the independent nation. But speaking from another perspective from the Indian side is that there has been a great loss of memory, or what you call the memory question for India is also important. That's the most important concern for my keynote address. I want to recall, it is not a story, it is about in the 16th century, in the conflict in the, as you all know that China was not a one country. Like at one point of time in the 16th century is that the Chinese, the Great Wall of China was built from 7th century onwards for a very, very long time. It went on for many centuries, building the Great Wall. There's a very interesting incident that happened in the 6th century with the Ming dynasty. The Mings really feared the Mongols in terms of the fortification, the defense of the territory that they were holding forth. But whenever they believed that the wall has been completed, but the Mongols ran through the wall, But how the Chinese, in fact, the Mongols, the tied down the Mongols is a very interesting mindset of the very historical, the strategic culture of the Chinese mind. And at one occasion is that the wall has been breached. The wall has been very clearly breached by the historical folk stories and the cultural narratives of the Ming and the Mongol conflicts. And when the wall has been breached, the Chinese step out of the gate. Then they said, "So we shall take some time to talk, negotiate. Then we will settle the conflict." They invite the invading, the Mongols, what they called as the tribes, or what they called as the nomads. They invited the leader of the general of the troops and invited him to come inside and talk. They completely kept him inside, never let him go out. You understand this negotiation strategy of China in the 16th century. This is one aspect of the historical narrative. Another aspect of the historical narrative is that this has happened in the parliament in India in 1963. In 1963, when, 1962, the October to November, we have had the war, and then, subsequently, we were talking about what happened in the war, the October War. An interesting reference is that at that time, that one of the, the Indian politician, the member of parliament, had a chance to go through, flip through the writings inside China. Writings inside China that, this gentleman read stating that, we only have to take control, and if we occupy Tibet, then the rest of the territories, fall in line. And it's a very amazing factual narrative inside the Parliament of India, which is very rare today, in a sense of the parliamentarians had a grip of the history and narratives, and they read the Chinese Review, they read about the Tibetologists, and very strong support about the issues of what happened in the northern border. So he states, very interestingly, says that the Tibet factor is very important for us because the Chinese occupy Tibet. But Tibet, in fact, is the territory which extends right up to the regions where the Chinese political narrative is that, not only with the Mao Zedong or the others, he said, the fact that, we take control of Tibet, and it entails with other reasons as the five fingers, the palm and the five fingers, the Tibetan influence, right from Nepal, and from Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh, and Ladakh and Leh, and it completely runs down to the entire region from the Assam, right from Assam or to the Jammu and northern Kashmir. So, if you are in control of Tibet, you are in control of the entire region. This is one of the most stunning narratives which the Chinese, by the 1950s, had written in their own manner. 1950 is very recent for us too. But what I'm trying to say is that the palm and the five fingers theory, and then when you're talking about the strategic aspect is that this is where I find there is something wrong about the strategic culture in India. This is something about the strategic culture in India is that, in 1954, when we signed the pact, the Panchsheel or the Sino-Indian Pact, is that after the treaty, very interesting, the 50 years later, they said this is a treaty, this is a pact, which is in fact which is splendors with a taste of a cake. And they used a very interesting word, calling it as the icing on the cake. And the word was, take my words, it was called as the icing on the cake. But India had all the ice, the Chinese had all the cake. And this was the icing on the cake for us after the 50 years. And a very interesting how the Chinese saw the 1954 pact, how the Indians saw the 1954 pact is in fact a very important revelation. And when we talk about the Chinese looking at this pact is that they, of the 5 points, the punch shield, when they talked about it, they picked the third point as the most important point, conditional to the respecting of the first point. Like, respecting the sovereignty of each other. But the Chinese said, if you have to respect the mutual interest, non-interference is a condition for respecting the sovereignty of India. So the non-interference implied the non-interference of the Chinese encirclement and the non-interference of the Chinese occupation of Tibet. So what you call of the punch shield, the point number 1 was in fact it's not, India saw the point number 1. You have to respect the sovereignty, which India was very content with this idea. But China was only going to be concerned if you do not interfere with the moves and the stakes of China. So soon after that, the Chinese moved into Tibet. Moved in the sense they were moving on from 1949. And then they moved in and very comfortably by 54 because they had a pact with India. And India is a very important country. I mean, right from the British India time, and then from 1907, you cannot go on with anything in the Himalayas without taking India into kind of a fold. So 1907, the British India understood that. And British India's interest vis-a-vis with Russia, British India stakes vis-a-vis with the British Empire, and the Indian leadership had seen by 1954, we saw India and the Himalayas in the same way the British saw. We did not see it like independent Indians. You see the difference between how you see the Himalayas. Himalayas was seen by the British Empire from an empire that had stakes in Afghanistan, that had stakes in, let's say for instance, with Russia, the conflict with Russia. So you have to protect about this terrain from the attack, from the movement of the northern security. But for us, for India, the Indian Himalayas perspective, we had inherited. I mean, in many ways, in a social metaphor, what we called is that India we had from the white sahibs to the brown sahibs, there was not a big strategic shift in the cultural mind. So this is a very important aspect. And subsequently, in 1960, 65, or what we call as the Northern Kashmir, and right up to the stakes involved, when Pakistan transferred, and I'm very happy, distinguished Madam Minister has made this reference to the Northern Kashmir issue, and what they call the POK, and subsequently of the territory, hundreds and miles of territory has been transferred from, and comes under the stakes, the sovereign stakes claimed by China was transferred by Pakistan. So there is no history in this world. Tell me one history in this world where a country transfers a territory and to another territory without any kind of a reason. Where is this history in this world? Even Alaska was you paid a price from the Tsars and then to the United States. So when this has happened, in a sense, from the Northern Kashmir and hundreds of miles of territory was simply being given away. There is a very interesting story in the Indian folklore is that, a child being carried to the court for justice, two women climbing over the rights over a baby child, and the king delivers a justice, if you both cannot settle down, you can cut the baby. And the real mother says, no, let the baby grow with another, what you call the adopted mother. But even India has not even reconciled, but then we still kind of nobody gives away. There's also said for the mango tree also, you don't let a mango tree that flows into the neighbor, but you share. So in a sense as this, we have stakes. This is a very important stakes where some of the very fundamental issues is that India must restore its own memory. In it for its own sake. I mean, this is a very important is that, it's time that we review our Tibet policy. We review, I dare say this. And I dare say that, it is very important for us, and we can make mistakes. But you can't stay there and stay blind saying that we have not made any mistakes. Can we do that? We can't do that. We have made mistakes, I agree. But it's time to go and review and say these mistakes can be addressed and rectified. But please change the textbook to the history students who study history in India. There's millions of children who go to schools in the NCERT books, reading the NCERT books, reading the state drafted textbooks in India. The political geography of India is that I wanted the map of India to be displayed here and to see and when Tibet has been our neighbor and for how long, and when did China replace as its neighbor. I mean, our children in a sense from 1949, I don't say 1947, and from children from 1954 textbooks in India, 1970s textbooks in India has changed. How did this change? Is the author of this textbook is about the Ministry of External Affairs or the Ministry of Defense, or is the Ministry of what they call the Ministry of Culture? This is a very important, substantial question. I have this question in me. Who writes the textbooks to us? Is it the Ministry of External Affairs has conceded? Or we have conceded, or we have kind of who are we to reconcile and to redefine the physical geography of this land, the Himalayas? Who are we to say that Tibet was never a neighbor to us? How can we have this kind of a loss of a memory? And how can we kind of go on believing this for and usually they say a government can speak a lie, but cannot protect a lie for more than 20 years. This is not only the scientific one, but this is a very, technically speaking, that all the records have to be disclosed after 20 years. Act of secrecy ceases to exist. But by the act of secrecy also, this memory should come out. The memory should come out that Tibet has been our neighbor. Once you acknowledge this fact, there are other factors can develop. Why don't we say this? Why don't we say this to our school teachers, to our bureaucrats, our politicians, our society? Instead of just saying that, I sympathize with Tibet. I sympathize with the people of Tibet. I want them to this thing. This is not enough. This is not enough for the Tibetans. This is not enough for India. This is not enough for India because it is time we review our foreign policy, more particularly our Himalayan worldview. Once this is set, we will have better relationship with what you call as the Nepal. We'll have better relationship with Bhutan. We can strengthen, cement our ties with Bhutan. And we can protect our border in Arunachal Pradesh. We can take much better care about Leh and Ladakh region. So when this is our own security issues, which India and when we are talking about, we have moved. I do agree we have moved in certain important areas of strategic significance and geopolitical significance, but it is not very important. The very important factor is that restore the memory and status and consciousness of Tibet as our neighbor. And I thank you all for this opportunity of sharing this occasion and moment to deliver this address with you. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ramu Manivannan. Now I would like to invite Mr. Passang Tsering, Principal of the College of Higher Tibetan Studies, Sara, to deliver opening remarks.
A very hearty good morning to everyone. Honorable Madam Norzin, respected Zamlha and research fellows of Tibet Policy Institute, eminent professors Dr. Ramu, Dr. Vasanta, Dr. Sonika, and Dr. Sarkar, who is not here right now, but he'll be joining later in the afternoon, and scholars and PhD students who have come all the way to attend in this conference. I assure you that this conference will prove to be fruitful and information for all the members and participating in the conference. I'll be your venue host for this conference, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference hosted by the Tibet Policy Institute. I'm grateful for all the speakers who have joined us today to share their knowledge and experiences with us. I'm extremely happy to have this opportunity to address you all at this year's conference. Today's conference has about 30 researchers and about six eminent professors participating with exquisite skills and experiences to share with us. I'm sure this conference will truly exude the diverse spirit and will be an immense success. This 6th Young Indian Scholars Conference has always yielded useful and spectacular results. It has always been a great medium to include scholars from all departments on Tibetan studies, and this inclusion increases the mutual respect amongst the scholars. It is also a great way to grab opportunities, since it is a great platform to share our experiences and wisdom on Tibetan studies with people that can be inspiring and resourceful. I would like to thank all the professors, researchers, and scholars joining us this year. We are very grateful that you all have taken out time from your busy schedule and travel all the way to have us make this conference grand. This two-day conference is designed as interactive as possible. Therefore, you are all free to ask legible and relatable questions. This conference will involve numerous interactive panel sessions and expert panel session where the speakers will share their work, ethic, and years of experience. If you look around, you will also see that we have numerous volunteers, interns at TBI, and who have joined us to make this event a success. They will act as your guide throughout the event, and they will also resolve any queries you may have. This event will be a great learning experience for young scholars and also a platform to build your network. So thank you all for being part of this conference, and I wish you all a very happy learning experience in these coming 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Passang. So actually, Tibet Policy Institute, we have prepared a special session expert panel on morning, but then one of our professor, due to his delayed flight, could not able to join morning session, so he will be joining afternoon session. So moving onwards, we have a group photo session which will be taking place inside. Thank you, everyone.